is also there.
Yeah.
सुरेंद्र जी आप म्यूट हैं. If you are wanting to say something, you are on mute mode.
Yeah, I wanted to inform that our director, Dr. Manoj Mehrotra, is also online.
Yes, we can see him on the screen. Welcome, Mr. Mehrotra.
Pradhan sir. Good afternoon.
Namaskar,
I have wished him also, and he has responded me also.
Namaskar, Dr.
Namaskar.
I think let's start.
Sure.
Yeah, let's begin.
Mr. Mathur, you want to start, and then I can.
Live is
So Aarti, let's make sure it's
streaming on YouTube also.
Let me first welcome everyone to this amazing program on behalf of
Mr. Mathur, I think your voice is breaking.
Not only breaking, he
It has
is
become-
logged out, I feel. Yeah, no, he is logged in. We
It
can't
has
see you, Mathur
become
sir.
completely silent.
You're not visible. Yeah, that is, I can see him on the screen logged in, but Mathur, can you hear me? Some connectivity issue. It is live streaming on YouTube as well. Mathur sir, can you hear me?
Maybe I can begin if Mr. Mathur is not able to connect.
Is it okay now?
आपकी आवाज ब्रेक कर रही
Can you
है.
hear me now? Break कर रही है.
अभी बेटर है.
Anyway,
अभी बेटर है.
let me welcome you
Now-
to this program.
Nowadays,
जी बोलिए
Welcome to
बोलिए.
this program, a unique
please put your
program.
camera on your camera.
And okay, let me first ask Aarti to introduce the speakers, because she happens to know them personally, much as I would have liked to introduce them myself. But since Aarti knows them so well personally, I think I would ask her to do it, to do the introduction. But let me first introduce Aarti herself. You know, Aarti Kumar is CEO and co-founder of Community Empowerment Lab and leads its design and analysis group. With a research background in machine learning and bioinformatics, Aarti is currently applying herself to the science of behavior change management towards survival of mothers and newborns. Aarti is an alumna of Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, where he graduated in computer science and did post-graduation in bioinformatics. Aarti will be talking to Rahul and Galyna along with me, and I would now request Aarti to introduce Rahul and Galyna. Aarti, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mathur, for that introduction. So maybe I'll pin you as well. Okay, great. So I would, on behalf of Lucknow Management Association, welcome our budding authors who've written this amazing prelude to the Gita, I would call it. So let me first welcome Dr. Galena Kogut. She is right now with the National Institute of Education in Singapore. She's done her PhD in education, focuses on language acquisition. And Galyna, I'm very fascinated by her life. She grew up in the erstwhile USSR in the communist regime. And she was introduced to the Gita very, very early on in her life. And she's kind of imbibed that in, in everything that she does. And I'll share more about that later. So that's Galyna. And Rahul Singh, so he did his IIM from management from IIM Bangalore. And he is a fellow alumnus of Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. That's our common connection. And Rahul is a very, very accomplished person. And he's also co-authored other books. This is in fact his third book, Rahul, isn't that? And Rahul, in fact, is also on the Executive Council of Jaipuria Institute of Management, which is part of LMA. So Rahul grew up, the interesting bit about Rahul is Rahul grew up he hails from Ayodhya. He grew up in Lucknow, studied in Jaipuria school, and comes from a very, very secular family background, exposed to all religions and cultures, and really grew up as an atheist in many ways. And he'll share more about that, his beliefs, how they began and how they've shaped through his journey in life. So welcome both of you. And this book that they have written, and it's amazing that at such an early age, they have attempted to write on the Gita, which is like a mammoth text, and so much has been written about on it. So many commentaries have been written by very elevated masters. So they've attempted a very bold thing by writing a prelude to the Gita. So we'll hear more about that in this session. So welcome both of you. And Rahul and Galyna, maybe you could introduce yourselves a little bit more if I've missed anything.
From my side, you have actually covered everything. So there is not much to add or subtract. And it's a wonderful introduction that you gave. And yeah, I have deep connections with Lucknow. In fact, as you mentioned, I'm still on the board of one of the education institutes there. Also connections with IIM Lucknow. So it almost feels like being home.
Great. Galyna, would you like to add anything about yourself?
Arti, thank you very much for your lovely introduction. I think you've covered pretty much everything. I just wanted to say that Lucknow is also like my second or maybe my third home, because I have my one home in Ukraine. I'm now in Singapore, and then I always come to Lucknow as home. You know why. So it's a beautiful place, which I also love with my heart.
So I forgot to add that both of them are also married to each other.
Incidentally.
Incidentally. Highly accomplished people, also married to each other. And so Lucknow is also Galyna's sasural. So welcome home, both of you. And maybe what I would like to begin, before we get on to this beautiful book that you've written, Galyna, I'm very fascinated by your life, and maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how it was like growing up in the erstwhile USSR. And it seems that the Gita, you managed to get hold of a smuggled copy of the Gita, and your journey has evolved since then. So we would like to know your journey before this book, how you were introduced to the Gita, what were your questions at that time, and how it has evolved.
Thank you for the question, Arti. Well, apparently when Gita happened in my life, there was some story to that, which Gita was sort of like a pinnacle. But then now that I look at it, I realize that having a Gita was not like the goal in itself, So yeah, so we'll talk later about that. But how I was going to that, ever since I was ever since I remembered myself, I was looking into the clear sky, like in those days, there was not so much pollution in the sky. You could see the clear stars. You look up, you see like really, especially in winters, like really frosty sky, really dark blue sky with bright stars. And I would ask my mom, Mommy, what is it there, in those stars? And then Mommy will tell me these are different other planets. So is there life there? I don't know. She will say, and then I would come home and I will think, okay, if there are so many stars, there are so many other people around, who am I, What am I doing here? How am I related to all this? How I am the part of all of this? And then why is me? Why am not my the friend who lives next doors? Why my mom is my mom, my dad is my dad, not the dad and mom of some other people? Why they're mine? Why do I love them? All these kind of questions. So then it was kind of a search within me. However, apparently you're looking for some kind of information and knowledge, but in school we were taught that that was in the times I was born. My formative years, like my childhood, was spent in the USSR. Ukraine was part of the USSR then. So I would, we go to school and they would tell us life comes from matter. Life is nothing but matter. So you're nothing. When you die, there will be just ashes, and that's it. So then when I was reading my history book, science book and all, and then they would show us that there were some civilization living previously at the terrain of Ukraine, and they're all gone. And the only thing which is left is the golden, some kind of jewelry. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is so depressing. Everyone will die, and the only thing which is left is golden jewelry. So what's the value of the gold? What's the value of life? So, and literally I was coming out into the street. Imagine like a teenager, like really 12 years old or something, 13. And I come out to the street and I'm like, oh gosh, all these people will be dead. And there will be nothing after them because they all matter. Really, is that true? So I had this deep search within me. So, it was going years after years, but I can't find the answer to that because in the USSR, officially it's a communism and it's officially also materialism. So you can't say any religious knowledge, any spiritual knowledge is banned. So we couldn't even get hold of the Bible. So what to speak about anything else? So if anybody knows that, let's say, my parents were believers, but they would just try to abstain from explaining too much because, the child goes out to the street and then just accidentally blurted something. And then there will be the informers coming and saying, okay, this is what we heard. So the parents will just lose their jobs. That was the reality. So we didn't really know much. We couldn't get hold of any of this kind of literature. But then the USSR, apparently they thought that they were eternal, but nothing is eternal in this world. Like we know color destroys everything. So yeah, so just at the last years of the USSR, some information started coming in, some spiritual esoteric knowledge. And then at that point of time also, my brother liked Indian exercises, which we call yoga. So he was going...
He's a physicist, right? He's a physicist and mathematician.
Yeah, he's a physicist and mathematician. So he was studying higher mathematics in his college and all. So he went to do yoga. And then, and when it was yoga, it was okay. So it's all for health. You don't have any spiritual inclination, you don't have any spiritual tint to it when you're just doing the exercises. That is fine. And then somehow apparently there were people who decided, okay, these people are doing yoga, so maybe they might be interested in India. Okay, India is also okay because India is a friendly country with the USSR, so we're all Bhais. So then they came and they started talking probably some more, which I didn't know then. But then I realized that I was asking my brother some questions, and he said, I don't really know. Like I was telling him why we are us and why all these things happen. He's like, I don't really know. These people are talking something about it. Maybe you can just have a look. And yeah, so he had his Gita on the table. I mean, I didn't know what book it was. So it was like, the description of it is like, it didn't have any front cover, like not much. It was just printed stuff. So it was a self-printed book. It was printed underground because nobody could allow to do that officially, like in a proper printing house. So it was a self-printed book, but what we had was a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy, like multiple photocopies. And that book, how it came to people in the USSR, it was smuggled by like a decade, about 2 decades ago. It was maybe 15 years before that, or 20 years before. It was smuggled by the founder of ISKCON into the USSR, who was risking his life by even going to the communist country. It's like going to North Korea now and trying to bring something like this. So, and that he left Bhagavad-Gita in the USSR, and then there were people who got interested in it. So they smuggled it all around different cities, underground. All this was like illegal activities, which you could literally and seriously, without any jokes, end up in jail for. So, or in the concentration camp, wherever they decide, wherever they deem to fit you in, depending on how big the offense is, they decide. So, yes, so we were reading this book. I didn't know. I asked my brother, who's Krishna? What is this person? They say Krishna, Arjuna. Who are these people? I don't quite understand. So he said, I can't tell you much, but there are some discussions about it. So if you want to join me, we can come. It was a Sunday, sort of like a Sunday thing. It was this yoga thing, and then we just came there, and then there was this. It was at the end of the USSR, so USSR was almost about to collapse. Yeah. So somehow, also underground, also like risking. I mean, of course, if we did it like, if it was like 1940s, 1950s, that would have been, this thing wouldn't even happen because it was somehow almost at the end. So I don't know what, maybe they lost their vigilance a little bit or something. I don't know. So we were discussing these things, and then I got to know more, and I just realized that it's good to read this book because it gives you all sort of like, it was practically answering all my questions in a very nice and logical way, and in a very wholesome way, not just telling me, this is this, but then I don't know how it is connected to the rest. So I could sort of like understand, like just reading it and discussing it gave me the idea of an answer to my questions. But of course, realizing all this and putting the dots together and making connections actually took years.
Amazing. And I think something like, such a heavy book like the Gita, it grows on you every time. I was introduced to it when I was maybe about 25 years old or 24 years old. And every time I go back to it, something new unfolds. So I guess that's has been your journey as well. And what happens when, somebody like you who grew up in that with that materialism as an ideology, that, that's all you are, and you die and you end up in matter, and you meet Rahul, who exactly believes, in the same thing. So you've gone through your journey, you've been introduced to the Gita, you've imbibed in your life, and then you meet Rahul. So maybe Rahul, let us hear a little bit from you about what you began as, and how you grew up, and how were you introduced to the Gita?
Sure. So, as I mentioned to you privately, I was actually born in Ayodhya. And while I was in India, not a single, never ever had I even come in close proximity to Gita, or for that matter, any other religious book. So there is Hanuman Gadi, which is basically the temple of Hanuman. And on that gully, they sell a lot of these books by Gita Press. I have seen them, not that I've not seen them, because you grow up there, so you see all these books. And then just Chirag Tale Andhera, because I was seeing them every day, I was not opening them, I was not bothered about them. Then my schooling happened in Lucknow. Fortunately, I was good at studies, got a scholarship. In fact, you are a co-scholar in that sense. Came to Singapore, and ironically, in my case, Gita happened to me in a foreign land through foreigners, right? That is essentially what it is. And that is also not something that happened immediately I come to Singapore and it happened. many years later, after I studied in Singapore, I worked for a while, then I did my MBA in India, in IIM Bangalore, came back to Singapore, and incidentally, I meet some people who kind of introduced me to the Bhagavad-Gita. Now, Galyna's inquiry was more self-inquiry, inquiring about who am I, why am I here, what is the purpose of life. She was probably looking for those kind of answers. I was not looking for those answers because my school had taught me very well, and my universities had done an excellent job on top of that of telling me that who are you? You are basically a bag of chemicals embrained in this membrane called skin, and your consciousness is coming from chemical reactions within your brain. So to me, that sounded quite logical, and that is how I was told. Much later, when I studied Indian philosophy, I realized that there is a particular term for these kind of people. It's called Chervaka, and Chervaka philosophy is established philosophy in the Indian system. In current parlance, you would call these guys atheist because literally they believe that life comes from matter, whereas all the Vedantic schools, the six of them, all the Shad Darshans, they believe that life is a function. The consciousness is a function of soul being in the body. So very different approaches. One says that because of soul you're alive. The other one says no, consciousness is a result of chemical reactions in the brain. Which of those is right? I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to acquire that knowledge to understand which of these is correct. But what essentially happened, you asked that question, how did I come across the Bhagavad-Gita? So there was a gentleman here who's a multi-billionaire, and he set up a forum, something similar to this forum, Lucknow Management Association, something similar to this, which he called Artha Forum. Now, Artha is a dual meaning there. Artha means meaning, but it also means wealth, or it also means money. So the tagline of Artha Forum was modern businesses, ancient wisdom. Now, in that Artha Forum, he used to invite Vedic scholars to come and talk about ethical ways of doing business. And by the way, ethics is taught in MBA schools, but more as a tick mark exercise. You learn about ethics. I'm not sure how many of us imbibe it, because if we did, then you won't have Enron, you don't have all the other crises that have happened, right? And you, Aarti, you have been in that corporate world, so you know better. But regardless, these guys were talking about these concepts, and these concepts were coming in some bits and pieces to me, and I got enticed. And what enticed me is that, all these guys who are kind of coming in these conferences, they are materially quite accomplished. They are millionaires and billionaires, but at the same time, they also have a sense of purpose in what they are doing. And I have said this to you, Aarti, separately, that most corporates don't have a purpose. They only have one purpose: to sell you things that you don't need at a price that you can't afford, using a bank loan that you don't want. That is the purpose of most of the corporates, right? And then I meet people like Ajay Piramal. I meet people, lots and lots of people who are philanthropic, who are doing great job. And then I got like curious, how are these people getting a different way of doing business? Conscious capitalism, thinks about impact investing. These are new management parlance that we talk about. I lecture on some of these at the IIMs. But I got introduced to this through these people. Otherwise, I was happily doing my investment banking, happy to get the highest paid salary from IIM, which I did. And life was going on. And then suddenly I meet these people who say there is more to life than just making money and dying. And then when I proved each single of them deeper, I realized that every single one of them had kind of been influenced by Indian scriptures, and more specifically by the Bhagavad-Gita. And that time, somehow, fortunately, somebody introduced me formally to it. But within me, there was curiosity. Kuch to hoga book mein padhna padega. That curiosity came, and through that, I started learning the book. So when I started learning the book, I realized that my entire education system was a farce. It was like, this knowledge that they teach you about the material world, how the physics, chemistry, maths works, how the management principles works, how the laws of the universe work, how you have 4P, 5C, Michael Porter's forces and all that. That's great. But at the end of the day, the question is, what is the purpose of human endeavor? What is Purusharth? What is the Artha of being a human? And that's when I got to know about the concept of Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha, and many other concepts. And that's when I realized that actually who I was quote unquote an atheist. And we can talk more about who an atheist is. But primarily, I was educated in an education system, which is very much Western influenced, which does great job at preparing you for the material world. But at the same time, you are running you have speed, but you have no direction. That's the conclusion I came up with. That after getting 95% in my class 12, that after getting scholarships, that after like ticking all the boxes that you are supposed to tick. So with that, then I realized that maybe there is something more to it. And then this book came. Incidentally, Galyna and I had a lot of philosophical discussions about this, me from a different angle, she from a different angle. And the culmination is this book. So maybe I take a pause here first.
Great. Thank you.
Coming back to your book, Rahul, can I ask something, Arti?
Please do,
Hello?
Mr. Please do.
Rahul, I'll begin by requesting you and Galyna to briefly tell us what you have tried to convey in this book in the manner you have chosen to.
Sure. So let's look at what Bhagavad-Gita is. So by the way, this book is not a commentary on the Bhagavad-Gita. In fact, the last chapter in this book is called What is Bhagavad-Gita? That's the last chapter. That's not the first chapter. So let me give you an example what this book is trying to do. So I am what I consider myself a Western educated person, even though, because of our education system, you could be in India, but your mind functions like a European mind because your education is so Eurocentric. So when you are trained in a way where you understand things in terms of scientific laws, management framework, and then suddenly there is Indian knowledge system where they talk about some of these concepts that I would be talking about later, which requires a different kind of training, which requires a different kind of understanding. And there is a lot of advanced commentaries. There are a lot of advanced discussion on this. But in order to understand that, you need to understand the ABCD. It's a bit like you want to understand Shakespeare. Now, Shakespeare is in medieval English. In order to understand Shakespeare, first of all, even if you understand English, you want to be able to understand that. So somebody has to translate that medieval English. I will use the word translate, that medieval English into modern English. And even if it's in modern English, you need to know the ABCD. So unless you know the ABCD, there is no point talking about Shakespeare. So this book basically is the ABCD of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, what is the ABCD of the Bhagavad Gita? And to that effect, I call Bhagavad Gita an instruction manual for life or for the universe. And what do I mean by that? So Bhagavad Gita essentially, according to me, talks about 5 concepts. What are those 5 concepts? And that is what I'm trying to cover in this book. The 5 concepts are basically how a jiva is an embodied soul, interacts with Prakriti. Prakriti is everything around you, the entire material nature. For you, even I am Prakriti. So how a jiva interacts with Prakriti in Kala. Kala is time. And this interaction is governed by the laws of karma, which are designed by Ishvara or the supreme controller or the all-capable. So let me repeat. This book tries to explain you how a jiva interacts with Prakriti in Kala, governed by the laws of karma, which are designed by the supreme controller. So that's what the book is trying to prepare you for. Once you understand these concepts, then is the time to pick up the Bhagavad Gita.
And you brought out these concepts from a lot of different scriptural sources, right, Rahul? Would you?
Scriptural as well as scientific sources. So
absolutely.
Because of my background, I am trained as a photonics engineer. I have worked in nanotechnology. That was my previous avatar before I did my MBA or before my banking job. At one point in time, I seriously thought I was a Nobel Prize winning material in physics, but then somehow my confidence got shattered when I rubbed shoulder with real geniuses, and I realized, no, I'm not a Nobel Prize winning material. But regardless, I discovered myself. I kind of knew कि मेरा level क्या है, and then through some incidents, some accidents, I landed up into a banking job and did that job, did an MBA. So what happened, Arti, is that, in some sense, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say this, there is a Ramayana, not a Ramayana, Mahabharata, which has been like scripted in India by B.R. Chopra. So in that Mahabharata, of course, this is not as such in the Mahabharata text which Ved Vyas wrote, but in that picturization, Arjuna is asking Krishna, Arjuna, would you become my charioteer? क्या आप मेरे सारथी बनेंगे? And Krishna का answer जो है, what Krishna replies there, it कदाचित मेरा जन्म ही इसीलिए हुआ है कि मैं तुम्हारा सारथी बन सकूं. Probably I am born to become your charioteer. So that when I was trying to do some research for this book, I also saw those videos and all. And apart from reading the Upanishads and many other things that I did. And that kind of stuck to me. And then I realized that probably my life was culminating up till that point in time, just so that I could write this book. Whether it's my training in science, whether it's my ability to understand management principles, whether it's my ability to be able to put them in a framework that will be interesting enough for people to read, whether it's meeting people like Galyna and many other people that I met in my life. It just somehow, life is a puzzle which makes more sense backwards than forward. And at that point, it made absolute sense that, okay, why did I not become a physicist? Why did I not become why was I so much repelled by banking? I mean, in some sense repelled, I would use that word, because, for good or for bad, majority of the corporates only focus on profit. They don't look at people and planet. But now we are talking about the 3 Ps, people and planet. But anyways, the kind of banking I was in, I think it was quite removed. So it was not really resonating with me. And then I came into touch with people like Rajiv Srivastava, Suman Chaki, Devaki Nandan, Galyna even in that course. And then, then it kind of made sense. This is all because I could write this book. So to me, it started making sense why all these are culminating. And in that sense, yes, you're right, Aarti. I have used a lot of concepts from Upanishads. I have used a lot of concepts from Puranas, but more importantly, I have tried to marry them with the concepts of science and with the concepts of management principles, whether it's Schrodinger equation or in advanced mathematics, whether it's Banach-Tarski, or whether it's things like Chaitin's inequality, Gödel's theorem. I have tried to come up with the scientific explanations to the scriptural understanding, the way I understood, in the quest that maybe somebody like me might also resonate with that.
So what you're trying to say is that you did not see any kind of cognitive dissonance between your training in science and what you encountered in the Gita.
No, so I have done an honest. I would not go on to make that bold claim, but what I would say is that I have tried to make an honest inquiry. I've tried to keep it as sincere as possible, balancing both things. See, it depends on your personality. Do you want to see differences or do you want to see similarities? If you want to see differences, then I am brown, Galyna is white, right? I mean, you could look at that way, right? But it depends on what you're trying to look for. So in my case, I'll give you a couple of examples where things match and where things don't match. Let's talk about Homo sapiens. So largely, modern science says that Homo sapiens came 200,000 to 300,000 years back. And if you ask anybody in India, when did Krishna came, then people say largely 5,000 years back, which is correct, because Krishna basically left the planet Earth on 3102 BC, 18 February. That's recorded. Through a lot of ways you can achieve that date through astronomical measures and various other techniques. You can triangulate that. But if you ask somebody, when was Rama born? People are clueless. But if you read the Purana, Rama actually came 18 million years back. Let me repeat, 18 million years back. So now that begs the question, is Rama Homo sapien? Because according to modern science, Homo sapiens only came 300, max 300,000, 3 lakh saal pehle. Or aap 18 million year pehle ki baat kar rahe hain. So there, it doesn't match. But then let me tell you some places where it is so perfect. When we talk about the concept of time, and in that concept of time, let me just make it short and tell you that one day of Brahma has 1,000 Mahayuga, and that equates to 4.3 billion years. And it is equal number of nights, equal duration of night. So you get 8.6 billion years. That is one day and night of Brahma, within which the universe gets created and kind of annihilates, gets destroyed. Now, if we look at the modern science dating of how old the universe is, they come up with a number which is 13.6 billion years. 13.6 billion years versus 88.6 billion years. Look at the scale. I mean, it's just so comparable, right? And there are many more things, like there is this number 108, which is so holy in the Indian scriptures, Indian system. So what's so unique about 108? I don't know, but what I know is that if you take sun, you can fit 108 Earths in that diameter of sun. Doesn't stop there. Between Earth and sun, there are 108 suns. The distance between sun and Earth is 108 suns. Still doesn't stop there. The distance between moon and Earth is 108 moons. You can call this coincidence, but the way I know coincidence happens once, not twice, not thrice, right? So do you call this design, or do you call this just a coincidence? Whatever it is, how did ancient Indians know this? I mean, even if it's true, how did they know this? And there are many such parallels that I can draw, where even from the perspective of Gita, where I can tell you that if you look at science and if you look at Gita, if you're trying to look for similarities, there are lots and lots and lots of similarities. Of course, if you're trying to look for differences, there are also lots and lots of differences as well. But you need to understand what is the objective. So when Gita is written, it is more about self-inquiry. Okay. But if you're trying to look at scientific answers, then you can't be relying on Gita, because Gita is hardly 700 shlokas, 1400 lines, hardly a conversation of 75 to 90 minutes. That's all it is. But if you're trying to understand greater nuances of how the universe operates, how things are, तो Gita is जो कृष्ण ने कहा. लेकिन अगर आपको और ज्यादा जानना है तो आपको ये जानना पड़ेगा कृष्ण ने क्या किया. तो किया के लिए आपको श्रीमद् भागवतम पढ़ना पड़ेगा. And श्रीमद् भागवतम is basically collection of, I think Galyna can correct me, a collection of 12 books, and the volume is quite voluminous. So over there they explain you what is creation, what is time, and so on and so forth. But let me just stop here.
Great. Thank you, Rahul. Now, I wanted to explore some fundamental concepts that you explore in this book with you. And I think, one thing that I love about the Indic culture, or the Indian way of looking at things, and that's why, atheism is a great place to begin, because you actually start from not just from a blank state, from a place where you're questioning, as Galyna was. You had a different quest. And if you look at the Gita, or you look at the Upanishads, all of these are about a curious seeker who is asking lots and lots of questions from a master who knows, right? So this whole idea of seeking, of questioning, of critical thinking, of finding out for yourself, they are very fundamental to our culture. And I would love to explore some of those things with you. Why or maybe we begin with Galyna. Galyna, why do you think, in today's world, why is critical thinking important? And what have you taken from the Gita on thinking critically? It's about, actually, we are not about blind faith. This country is not about blind faith, right? It's about questioning. And the whole Gita, I like, when I read the Gita, I was like, Krishna is just saying, a few basic things over and over and again. And Arjuna is asking him, 10,000 questions about it. And he tries to satisfy each and every question. So if you look at Krishna as God, for example, and he's willing to listen to each and every question and answer that, it's just glorifying the culture of questioning and critical thinking. So Galyna, I would love to know your thoughts on that.
First, probably we will start with Gita. We all know it's a dialogue, right? So it's a dialogue which happened a long time in the past between somebody who was in a critical situation, Arjun, right? The whole war of Kurukshetra was going to outbreak like in a very short period of time, and he was confused. He didn't know what to do, which is normal for a human being, I guess. Yeah, if people don't ever get confused, it means that probably they're never thinking, So Arjun came to Krishna and he said, look, I'm lost. You tell me what to do. So, and Krishna accepted that. And because Arjuna was asking sincerely, Krishna accepted that, and he told him the whole of Bhagavad-Gita, which is not that long, but also not that short. It's a very concise explanation and very concise answers to practically every question which Arjuna was asking. So if we look at it, first of all, there's two things here. There has to be a sincere quest. A sincere quest and a receptive mode. It's like a kid, a child at home. They've done all of their things, and then eventually they come, Mommy, help. So what does Mommy do? She just says, okay, let's sit, let's discuss, talk about it. So that kind of mode, sincere, questioning mode, and receptive mode has to be there. What is the second thing which is good? A qualified, compassionate, skillful person who will tell you about that knowledge, which in my understanding is with Arjuna, it was Krishna. For us, it's like for me, it's a guru or somebody who shares the knowledge. Like guru, I mean, for us, for me, as somebody who's a foreigner, guru is a big word. But I think for in India, it's like, yeah, guru, anybody is a guru, is a teacher, right? So there has to be a sort of like, is it adhyapak? No, adhyapak is a teacher, right? So there has to be the vidyartha. Vidyartha is somebody who wants knowledge sincerely in a receptive mode. And there has to be somebody who can give that, who is qualified, knowledgeable, and compassionate enough to understand that, look, I mean, yeah, this fella is really lost. Let me fix him. Yeah. So pretty much as the Gita is pretty much the same kind of like which we have composed this book. It's a discussion, it's a dialogue between somebody who is sort of like not exactly lost, but curious, you know. So there was a question there, like, will this make us happy? I mean, I want to see that person who will tell me, I don't want to be happy. Show me that person. In my life, I haven't met that kind of a person. Everybody wants to be happy. We do things because we want to be happy. We don't do things because we want to be happy. We have children because we want to be happy. We want the children to be happy. We want everybody to be happy, especially our. I have never seen a person who wants to be unhappy, you know. And this guy, he hears this word, his question, and it resonates with him because naturally he wants to be happy. So he is sort of like in the same mode, you know, in how to be happy. If this guy is talking about how to be happy, he knows something. Yeah, let me go and you know, get some information from him. Maybe he has something to share. So again, we see the inquisitive, sincere mode and receptive mode also.
So why is, sorry to interrupt. So why is atheism a great start for the Gita? And why is, you know, I mean, I do feel that in today's world, you know, there is so much ideological warfare and we are drawn into all kinds of ideologies. And I think we are lost. We are not able to think on our own. And so why, maybe Rahul, you could also share a little bit on why is atheism a great starting point?
As you said, atheism is a clean slate. And let me just say something. You said something beautiful. Our whole culture is about the spirit of inquiry. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now that you have the human life, inquire. Inquire what? Inquire who is Brahman. And Brahman is the entire universe. And inquiring Brahman, how do you inquire who is Brahman? To inquire who is Brahman, you need to know who is Atman. And these are not different, by the way, right? How will you do that inquiry? That Bhagavad-Gita is actually an instruction manual to do that inquiry. In some sense, that is what it is. But let me say something else. We have a culture of Shastrarth. Shastra ka arth. Shastro ka arth kya hai? Scriptures ka arth kya hai? Only in India. In a lot of other places, if you question, it's blasphemy. You would be crucified. You would be burnt alive. You would be put behind bar. You would be hanged. Only in India, you can do Shastrarth. Okay, this is something I want to establish very strongly. The other thing is that, how do you do Shastrarth? How do you argue on something? So before you argue on something, you have to set up some base guideline principle. So how do you prove something? How do you establish something? So in the Indian knowledge system, we have something called Shad Pramar. That means 6 ways to prove something. And what are these? The
first chapter of the book, in fact,
this is the first chapter. It's a third chapter because, I mean, kind of the first main real chapter, because before that, there's just dialogues going on, setting up the ground for that. So there are 6 ways of proving something. I'll just talk about 3, which all of you can relate, and there are more. So one is pratyaksh, जो आपको दिख रहा है, सामने दिख रहा है, जैसे सामने दिख रहा है ना कि वो सूरज है, वो moon है, so that is pratyaksh. Then there is anuman. You can't see, but you're guessing. Let's say there is smoke somewhere, you can't see fire, but you're saying, okay, maybe there is fire somewhere. And then there is shabd. Shabd is verbal testimony. Somebody is saying this is how it is. When I was in my school, my chemistry teacher told me acid plus base is equal to water plus salt. I was not able to see that on my paper, but I trusted my teacher. I trusted the book, and I said, okay, this must be true. So you cannot run away from Shabd Purana. You cannot run away from that verbal testimony. And there are more. There is Arthapatti, there is Upmana, there is many more things that come in. So now once you have those Shad Pramar, the 6 ways of proving something, the question is,
Do you agree with this or do you not agree with this? So at the very basic, you fundamentally everybody, unless you think that the whole world is Maya, but let's not go into those advanced discussion. Fundamentally, everybody agrees with pratyaksh. जो सामने दिख रहा है वो तो प्रत्यक्ष है. Some people may not agree with anuman. आप अनुमान लगा रहे हैं. I don't agree with this. Some people may not agree with testimony. They will say, what's the guarantee that this guy is speaking truth or this? And by the way, Shabd Pramad, when we say, our scriptures fall into that Shabd Pramad category. True in itself because of verbal testimony. But testimony by whom? किसके हवाले से आप बोल रहे हैं? The person who is speaking is important, okay? But let's not go into that. Now, mapping those Shad Pramad, there is Shad Darshan. Shad Darshan is 6, Darshan is see. How do you look at things? So Shad Darshan is how do you look at this entire life that we have, or this entire universe we have. And to varying degrees, these various Shad Darshan, whether it's Mimamsa or Nyaya or Shankhya or Vedanta, they will look at these various pramad to varying degrees. So depending on which ones they accept, you will have slight demarcations. But importantly, there is something called Chervaka, and Chervaka only believes in pratyaksh, doesn't believe in anything else. So Chervaka will come and say, soul hota hai, dikhao mere ko. दिखता तो नहीं है ना, तो नहीं prove कर सकते उसको कुछ, तो वो हो गया. But then we understand that is the limitation, that is the framework under which Chervaka is operating. Then there are other schools like Dvait Vedanta. Dvait Vedanta accepts 3. It accepts your pratyaksh, it accepts your anuman, it accepts Shabd Pramad. So they operate in that realm. So depending on what you accept and what you don't accept, we have a framework within which we can argue. And that's why the beauty of Shastra, because we have set up some ground rules on which we will argue. Now, let me come back to your question, directly come back to your question about atheist. Why is an atheist the best person to read the Bhagavad-Gita? I say atheist is the best person because you come with a clean slate. Kuch nahi hai. I don't come up with a pre-notion. I'm not a Dvait. I'm not Nyaya. I'm not Mimamsa. I'm not Sankhya. I'm atheist. I don't believe in any of this. So एक होता है जानना, एक होता है मानना. So an atheist comes with an inquiry of जानना. जानने के बाद ही तो आप मान सकते हो ना. जानने से पहले तो आप नहीं मान सकते. तो उसको तो हम अंधविश्वास बोलते हैं. अगर आप मान के बैठे हो लेकिन जानते नहीं हो. So that is why I say atheist is the most qualified person. But let me also, Aarti, since you touched upon this topic of atheist, I also want to make a distinction. The way we say atheist in English is different from the way we say atheist in Hindi or Sanskrit. It's Nastik. So atheist comes from this Greek word atheos, means theos. Theos matlab God, a matlab not. So atheist becomes somebody who doesn't believe in God. That's a very precise definition right there in Greek. When you come to Nastik, the word is na asti ka. So na asti, it doesn't exist. And ka means jo usko believe karta hai. It doesn't exist. It defined nahi hai. That is the beauty there. It is not defined. So how do you know what is, when we say Nastik, what is this it? So for that you have to read advanced Sanskrit commentaries. And Panini is the greatest grammarian in Sanskrit. So Panini की अष्टाध्यायी है. उस अष्टाध्यायी में he explains what Nastik is. आपको उसको पढ़ने के बाद भी समझ में नहीं आएगा. Why? Because Sanskrit is very potent, very dense. It's almost like formulas, like mathematical formulas. When I say F is equal to MA, then you need to know what is F, what is M, what is A. So when you do a first level commentary on a sutra, it's called basically first level जो आप commentary करते हैं उसको वृत्ति बोलते हैं. सेकंड लेवल कमेंट्री जो आप बोलते हैं उसको टीका बोलते हैं. थर्ड लेवल कमेंट्री आप करते हैं उसको टिप्पणी बोलते हैं. तो अभी आज इंडिया में बोलते हैं ज्यादा टीका टिप्पणी ना कीजिए. दैट वी टेक इट इन अ नेगेटिव कॉन्टेक्स्ट, बट दैट मींस डोंट ओवरली कमेंट और क्रिटिसाइज व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. सो एक होता है सूत्रा, फिर होता है वृत्ति, फिर होता है टीका, फिर होता है टिप्पणी. व्हाई एम आई टेलिंग दिस? सो व्हेन पाणिनि गिव दैट सूत्र where he explains what Nastik is, you still won't understand. To understand that, you need to read some vritti, and the most famous vritti on this is the one coming from Kasi, which is called Kashika, because it's coming from Kasi Banaras. So in that Kashika, Kasi Banaras wala jo vritti hai, in that it is explained that who is Nastik. By the way, if you look at Buddhist and Jains, from a very strict definition, even they can be called atheists because they don't per se believe in a creator God. They are non-theistic religions. Not just that, if you look at from a Vedantic school, Manu Smriti says that anybody who criticizes the Veda is a Nastik. From by that definition also, Buddhists and Jains do criticize the Vedas and they become Nastik. But let's not look at these. Let's look at it etymologically, what it means. So etymologically, when you say Nastik, so what it says is anybody who doesn't believe in a hereafter, that is Nastic. Now, both Jains and Buddhists believe in a sort of hereafter. Jains do not believe in a soul per se, but Buddhists do not believe in a soul per se, but they believe in consciousness after death. They do not call it soul though. Jains believe in soul, they believe in laws of karma, but what they believe is that there is no need to evoke the concept of God, the generator, operator, destroyer God, in order for the universe to function. So they do believe in souls, but they believe the laws propagate on its own. Whereas Buddhists, they believe that although what they say is that no single cause can be responsible for creation of the world. So in that sense, they do not believe in this. When I say God, I mean the creator God, the God, the generator, operator, destroyer, that God. So neither the Buddhist nor the Jainas believe in that kind of God. Yet, from some point, so you can call them atheists, but not Gnostic. They are not Gnostic, however, they are atheists because they don't per se believe in the creator God. They don't per se believe that God is required for creation of the universe. So I hope I've somewhat answered your question.
Yes.
Arti, I think I have a few questions to ask them.
Please.
And also we should leave some time for the audience to ask the questions. Is that all right? So,
Sure.
I have read this book in last 2-3 days, and I wanted to ask Rahul as a management professional. In early part of the book, he has given a simple equation, which is happiness is equal to attainment minus desire. And he also mentions that focus on results leads to unhappiness and can even lead to a variety of vices to achieve the result. In management, we have an accepted practice called MBO, management by objectives, in which we fix quantified objectives or expected results or outcomes for individuals and organizations. We also say that the good performance needs regular measurement of progress towards achievement of expected results. Now, if you were to redefine MBO, Rahul, how would you modify MBO processes in light of Gita's teaching of only focus on activities or karma and not on results?
So I don't need to modify that equation. And this question comes to me without a fail in every session I do, whether I'm teaching at IIM or whether I'm speaking to experienced professional like you. Every session I do, this question comes invariably. So this is what we need to understand. When you set up MBO, and if you make your MBO end all, then you're still doing the right thing for the wrong reason. What you need to focus on is there is something called Abhyas and Bairag. So MBO or goal setting is important. And that's why you need desire, because without desire, there is no goals. You need to set goals. So some people misunderstand that equation. I'm not saying you can never make desire zero. That is first of all, not the conclusion of the equation. But if you have the desires, you will have desires. Desires will help you set goals. But once those goals have been set up, then you have to focus on abhyas, on the process. If you get so much bogged down with the goals itself, then you are trying to meet the goal no matter what. And that's when any student who has ever cheated in the exam, any management professional, any CEO who has ever fudged number, any salesperson who has ever bribed, that has simply happened because the desire has so overtaken you that you are trying to attain no matter what. And that is the problem. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with measuring, because if you can't measure, you don't know where you are. Even for students, when there are students, if you don't have exams, if you don't have tests, then how would you know how they have performed? So there is nothing wrong in measurement. What is wrong, however, is I want to get an A grade, and instead of focusing on my learning, instead of focusing on my studying, I'm so fixated on that A grade that in order to get that A grade, I'm going to do whatever. And that whatever, by the way, could include cheating in the exam, and that whatever, by the way, changes your focus. Instead of focusing on things you can control, which is your learning, you are now bogged down with that A grade. So that is the problem. When you even in management, the same thing. You need those guiding principles, but then those principles are supposed to be guiding principles to help you know whether you are on the right track. They cannot be end all and be all. You need to have a process, and that process, the only thing you can do is do your duties sincerely. So I hope that, I mean, this is a potent topic. I can talk half an hour on this, but in 5 minutes, that's the summary I can give you.
So what you are saying is that you should not be overly conscious of the goals or the results.
No, you should be conscious of the result, because unless you're conscious, you don't know. See, if you don't, it's like a roadmap. If you don't know where you're headed, you are heading nowhere. So you should be conscious about the goal, but you should not be so bogged down by the goal that the goal becomes your end all. You should focus on the process. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Achha, there was
not just the
another
process you mean.
question.
What you're trying to say is focus on your own effort. Make sure that
Focus on the
effort
things
is
you can control. You can control your efforts. See, as a student, I can control how many hours I put in the exam, right? How many hours I put in the learning. The exam is basically testing my effort. It's not there for, so it's called abhyas and bairag. So once you have set up your goal, you have to bairag yourself from that goal, and you have to focus on abhyas, because if you're so fixated on that goal itself, trust me, sooner or later, that desire to have that BMW, that desire to outdo everybody else, that desire to be a university topper, if it's not a very pious desire, and if you get overpowered by that desire starts controlling you rather than you controlling the desire.
There was another confusion in my mind as I read your book. In your chapter on laws of karma, you say that you would not want to do good karmas. As I could understand, karma is good activities performed according to one's duty and God's laws, and vikarma is sinful activities which are against the laws of God and leads you to miseries in life or in the next life. Now, akarma is transcendental activities which aim at pleasing Krishna and so on. Now, the problem is that you would not do good karma because these will take you to another life to enjoy the fruits of good karma, and akarma will give you moksha. Now that means not doing anything leads to moksha, and doing good karma is not desirable because it will lead to rebirth to enjoy the fruit of life.
No, akarma is not doing no karma. That's the problem. Nowhere in the chapter I've said akarma is equal to not doing karma. Let me explain. When you say you do good, good will happen to you. When you say when you do bad will happen to you. That is true. Kahin na kahin wo kuch had tak sahi hai. But we have oversimplified the law of karma. There are three types of karma. There is sanchit karma, there is prarabdha, and there is kriyaman karma. Let's understand the difference. But before we understand the difference, let me tell you something else. What is the objective of this human endeavor according to the Bhagavad-Gita? Moksha. What is moksha? Moksha is getting out of this cycle of samsara. What is samsara? Samsara is life and death. So your objective of this human endeavor is to get out of this cycle. If you don't agree with this, end of discussion. But let's assume that is the objective. Now, how do you achieve that objective?
No,
so when the soul
is good karma.
No, objective is not good karma, sir. Let me explain, because otherwise you will take away that doing nothing is the objective of life. It is not. So when we say let's understand what is the journey of soul, what is the starting point, what is the end point. Soul is a spiritual entity. It is an alien in the material world. All of us are what is called embodied soul. We have a body around the soul. That's number one. When you enter the material world, when the soul enters the material world, its karma score is 0. You can get out of this samsara, the cycle of birth and death, only and only when your karma score is again 0. The rule is very simple. You start with 0, you end with 0. The playing game is very difficult. Why is it so difficult? The moment you come into, the moment you are born, no matter what activity you do, activity is called kriya. No matter what kriya you do, there is a consequence to that kriya. It's called, you can call it bad karma, good karma, whatever. So that kriya having a consequence is called that kriya. The karma that comes out of kriya is called kriyaman karma. It's like when you do a job, you get a salary. So you will get a salary. Let's just keep it as salary at the moment. Then after your first month, your net sanchit is whatever you have collected. Your sanchit after your first salary is equal to whatever kriyaman karma you have accumulated minus the expense. Expense is called prarabdha. Now let me explain. So basically what I'm saying is wealth today is equal to wealth yesterday minus the expenses plus the salary. That is what that karma equation is saying. Very simple. How does it apply to karma? So no matter what you do, you will create karma. So if you do good karma, you have to take birth, maybe in this lifetime or multiple other lifetimes, to taste the fruit of that karma. If you do bad karma, you still have to come back and taste the fruit of the karma. So either ways, it's a chain. One is on a golden chain, one is an iron chain. But your goal in life is not to come here and enjoy the fruits of your action. The goal of life is moksha, according to the Bhagavad-Gita, not according to Rahul Singh. Now, if that is the goal, how do you achieve that? Fundamentally, I said any kriya you do is gonna have karma. So if any kriya is going to have karma, then I'm infinitely bound in this samsara, this cycle of life and death. So how do I come out of it? And the concept of karma yoga comes. And there are 4 types of yoga: Dhyana yoga, Bhakti yoga, Jnana yoga, and karma yoga. But I will only stick to karma yoga here for the sake of discussion. So in karma yoga, what it says is that if you dissociate yourself from the outcome, if you do your karmas in a way that it's nishkam, without the kam bhav, without the attachment to the outcome, then it's nishkam. Then that kriya doesn't attract any negative or positive. It doesn't create a karma. So your goal of life is not to not do any action. You cannot not do action. Even to be alive, you need to breathe, you need to eat. How can you not do action? How can you not do kriya? But the point here is to do nishkam kriya, to dissociate yourself from the result of whatever you're doing. Easy to say, rules of game are very simple, very difficult to follow. Again, on this, I can do another 1-hour session, but let's just take a pause here. So takeaway here is a karma is not doing karma. In fact, Bhagavad-Gita clearly says in Bhagavad-Gita 2.47, you are only entitled to your duties, not to the result, and never be inactive, never do inaction. So it fundamentally says do your kriya, do your duty, do your action. It never says do not do your action, but do your duties. How? In such a way that you are not attracted to the result.
Karma is a karma. Are you saying that
Nishkam karma is a karma? Absolutely. That is what a karma is.
And is dharma religion, or what is dharma?
Again, Aarti, this is a landmine. So if you want me to answer that, I will answer, but it will take 10 minutes.
Okay, never mind.
Can I chip in here? Hello.
Leave 10 minutes for the audience also, please.
Sure. Please.
Can I chip in here, Aarti ji? Can I raise? Nice of you. Thank you so much. I think I must pay my respectable congratulations to all of you for having come out such a brilliant, deep journey Rahul and his colleague has been going through, and that too in a very, very articulative and analytical way. I'm here, Anil Singh, speaking from Lucknow itself. And since he being alumni of IIM Bangalore, where my several friends are professors over there, and I wanted to also add here little things that in the management science, it was the first ever IIM Ahmedabad who came out with a wonderful faculty called ISEPS, Indian Society for Applied Behavior Science. When Uday Parikh and several faculties came out, and nowadays, almost in all IIMs and several institutions of stature, people have been primarily referring Bhagavad-Gita and several of our ancient scriptures. Now, my concern, first and foremost goes to Rahulji, who is a wonderful human being. I call him respectfully Rahulji. I happen to be a senior citizen.
Sorry, you're muted.
Speak a bit slower, because the subject is so interesting and deep-seated to our soul. We need to have some kind of, a kind of our deep inward journey to catch his words, what exactly he's trying to say. Rahulji, to somehow there hardly managed to speak a bit slower so that we could internalize all along your, the journey you have been taking. Now, to me, you pick up any scriptures, be it Bhagavad-Gita or Ramayana or Veda or Shastra, these are all primarily giving us a lesson to have our inward journey now. Therefore, we as an individual on the mother planet, having been created by Lord Brahma, we need to basically visualize, actualize, and then internalize in our action what is the karma. Now, I'm just wondering here, and this is this is how I think one of the writer, very famous journalist, I'm forgetting his good name. He delivered a lecture also in Berkeley and LSE, and fortunately, I was also there. Difficulties of being a human being. This is a wonderful book, and he all along talked only about. Hello.
Gurcharan Das is the author of that book, I think.
Gurcharan Das, correct. Gurcharan Das. He talked all along only on Bhagavad-Gita. Now, what happens? Something like now what Rahul ji you are saying, there is a difference between acting as a person and being a person. This is what I said earlier, that you have to take an inward journey. You have to take a dive in your own life and then try to basically relate. But the question lies here, I think the concern lies here, which I would like to know from you. What do you exactly see the difference between karma and dharma? Because both are interlinked to each other. If we basically perform or do anything without what you said earlier, ethics and ethos, the dharma, I think, the whole framework or whole circle of karma doesn't get completed. So you need to have, that blend of culture and texture, what we call in our Hindi Sanskriti. Otherwise, it becomes more of a dramatization. So how do you explain a very striking balance between karma and dharma?
Yeah,
yes,
sure.
Rahul.
So Rahul, yes, please.
So I totally agree with you there. Aarti, I was trying to not go into this topic of dharma, but now the problem has been complicated like doubly by asking the difference between karma and dharma. So I will have to talk about dharma. So first, some misconception. Dharma is not religion. Dharma is not ethics. Okay, let's start with that. Similarly, yoga is not turning and twisting your body. Karma is not acha karoge bura hoga, acha hoga, bura karoge bura hoga. That are some of the misconceptions we have to clear that. Now, specifically because the question was about karma and dharma, in a very simplistic term, karma is the sum total of the consequences of your activity. That is what karma is. The entire framework within that this happens, that's karma. Very, very bluntly, you can call it duty, specifically in the context of the 2.47 Bhagavad-Gita. But again, it's not karma, it's not per se duty. Dharma is not ethics, dharma is not religion. So question is, what is dharma? So dharma comes from the Sanskrit word dharan. Dharan means to hold. In fact, the definition of dharma comes in Mahabharata Karna Parva. In that, the definition of dharma is dharanat dharma ityahu. That means one that holds is dharma. Okay? Can you see how removed it is from dharma is equal to religion? Religion, by the way, comes from the Greek word which is from the Latin word which is religio, which means to connect. And to that effect, the analogous of religion would actually be yoga, as per Sanskrit, will not be dharma. Now dharma would not be dharma. Now coming back to dharma. So what it says is the Mahabharata definition of dharma is something that holds. Now the question is, holds what? Holds the system, holds the universe together. Anything that holds the system is dharma. Anything that basically disintegrates is adharma.
Very nice. How does it apply to humans, or how does it apply to the universe at all? Everything has a dharma. Even the non-living beings, the Jad has a dharma, and Chetan also has a dharma. So what is the
Dharma
dharma?
is a personal thing, you're saying. What you're
No, it's
saying
not.
is dharma
No,
is...
I'm not saying it's a personal thing. We will come to that. Let's not jump. I mean, when you are coming to dharma, I think you're talking about swadharma. But I have to build this. I cannot immediately jump from dharma is something that holds together to say that dharma is personal. I have to build that. Okay. So you're right, Aarti, but I have to build that. So now what have we established? We have said dharma is something. So dharma is something that holds the universe together. So as I'm saying, everything has a dharma. Everything in the universe has a dharma. Even non-living things have a dharma. So what is the dharma of water? The dharma of water is to make things wet. What is the dharma of Agni? The dharma of Agni is to burn. What is the dharma of sugar? The dharma of sugar is to be sweet. This is called swabhav. Everything has a swabhav. Your swabhav is your dharma. Your bhav, what you are innately, that is your dharma. So if sugar starts to be bitter, if fire starts to, if water starts to burn, then that is adharma. Okay. Now we progress that and come to the consciousness level. What is dharma at the consciousness level, at the jiva level? Now dharma at the jiva level is still the same, to uphold the order of the universe. When you apply that to the humans, it gets slightly complicated. Why? Because you see, the ability of a jiva to disturb this balance, to disintegrate this, what holds the universe, is there but limited. How much disbalance can a cow create? How much disbalance can a tiger create? Not much, right? But when it comes to human, turns out we can create a lot of disturbance to this order. And in that, what is important, Aarti, is to understand this concept of swadharma and paradharma. So that is what you are hinting at. Swadharma is your individual dharma, unique to you, based on your propensity, based on your swabhav. All of us have different swabhav. So depending on what your swabhav is, and that swabhav also comes with a varying degree of rajas, tamas, sattva, depending on what combination of this you are. Just like you have millions of colors on the TV screen, just from the basic RGB, red, green, blue, you have millions and millions of personalities. So depending on your personality, depending on what combination of rajas, tamas, sattva you have a different swabhav. Depending on your swabhav, you will have a swadharma. So the same compassion, which is a gift for a doctor, becomes an inhibition for a soldier, because if you're compassionate, you will not be able to kill. And the dharma of the soldier is to kill somebody who has come to take away your land. The same, the same aggression, which is so much required for a soldier, will not work for a doctor. Likewise, reverse, right? So first of all, we need to understand what our swadharma is. And that, by the way, relates to my other book, which is Ikigai, finding what your true purpose is. Most of us will go from cradle to grave without finding what our purpose is. So that is where the concept of swadharma comes. Now, the question which the gentleman was asking, how to balance karma and dharma. Now that I've told you all this, now we are qualified enough to at least tackle that question. So that is where dharma sukshma comes. Dharma sukshma means to finally divide this. So it's not that Arjuna did not know his dharma. He knew his dharma very well. Problem happens individually. In isolation, we know dharma. When I say, okay, should you lie? You would say no. When I say, should you kill? You will say no. Individually, in isolation, we know this. Problem happens when one dharma is pitted against another dharma. What was happening in Arjuna's case is that he is a Kshatriya, but at the same time, he is a family member of the people on the other side. So his family dharma is telling him to protect them, whereas his Kshatriya dharma is saying, if you don't kill these guys, they are going to create such a gross adharma. They are going to destroy the system, disintegrate the system in such a gross way that you are not at that time fulfilling your Kshatriya dharma. The problem happens, which dharma is superior, right? That is why, because humans have intellect, we say, no, with great powers comes great responsibility. So an ant only operates at seed level. All the animal operate at seed level, sleeping, eating, entertaining, defending. Human beings operate at a slightly higher level. And that's why you need to understand this concept of sukshma dharma. And you need to discern that power of discrimination comes when you understand what is your dharma. And karma is basically aligning your kriyas, aligning your duties in accordance with your swadharma. So when these are aligned, then you are happy. When these are not aligned, then you are unhappy. So I have I hope I've somewhat tried to answer that question of karma and dharma.
Any other questions asking?
Yeah.
Anyone ask?
Can I ask one question?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I am A.K. Singh. My question to Rahul. First, I must congratulate you. You made a very good discussion and you clarified so many things in such a short time. And you rightly said that the beauty of our value system, our knowledge system in Indian subcontinent has been questioning, which is not permitted elsewhere in the world. They say don't question anything. And here our strength starts with questioning why it is so. My issue is ultimately what do we need? We need the pleasure, happiness. And we cannot get pleasure unless we have a peace of mind. And how to get that peace of mind? Of course, we read, we write, we preach, we listen to others, but unless we practice it. And that is the morality is the first part of it. Morality, unless hamara seal or sadachar, if that is not there, it is not going to happen. In normal life, we do not have perfect this morality. Then what to do? Meditate. Even that clears only periphery of the system. Then that pragya comes, that the knowledge by the experience. That is what the missing link in most of the cases. We know what is what, but unless we acquire this knowledge not by reading or listening, but by experiencing it, as you said about dharma, and that experiencing, that is a long drawn process that starts with the morality. So ultimately what Lord Krishna says is ki aap bhajan karo. He clarified, he explained what is yajna and then what is karma, and finally कर्म क्या है? एक परमात्मा का नाम एक लेने के अलावा, भजन के अलावा, that is the ultimate karma. So what do you say that whether by reading or listening books like this Gita, can we get the pleasure and happiness, or will have to do that kind of sadhana or bhajan starting with the morality? And if that is so, what is your experience?
Okay, so I think my colleague here, Galyna, is more qualified to answer this, but let me just say a few things. When I'm approaching the Bhagavad Gita, I'm approaching it as a Gyan Yogi from the intellectual point of view. When Galyna is approaching the same book, she is approaching from that Bhakti Yoga point of view. So what is the difference? So there is Gyan Yoga, there is Dhyan Yoga, there is Bhakti Yoga, there is Karma Yoga. We don't have time to go through all this, but maybe I will defer this question to Galyna, which is about basically what you're trying to say is that intellectually we understand, but we have to imbibe it. So Galyna, why don't you throw some light on that?
I guess this is totally rightly pointed that we can inquire, we can read, and we can try to memorize, but until and unless we start living through that, nothing's going to happen and no change is going to happen in our life. So Gita explains all of the 4 types of yoga, which Rahul just mentioned. And it also explains the method for each of them.
And the kind of person that each of them would be applicable to, more importantly.
The type of the person and the kind of for which kind of gunas it is appropriate. And the type of the person, because the qualities of the person also matter. However, I mean, and it's mentioned in other scriptures also, like everybody is looking for what suits them best, what they're comfortable with, because at the end of the day, we are looking for something which we are comfortable with, which makes us happy, and what is in line with our qualities, how much we can handle, right? Or how much we can, how much relates to us as a person, as an individual, as a personality. So like I wouldn't like in my early days, as I said, my quest was very intense. So I was trying to get hold of all sorts of like literature, which was like also some descriptions of like meditation, karma yoga, jnana yoga, like meditating of like within your heart on Paramatma and all. However, like to me, the yoga which related with me and my personality the most, and the kind of like knowledge I was looking at, was the Bhakti Yoga. And to me, I take it as to me, the verse in Bhagavad-Gita, which is 1866, which says, now that I've told you everything, I explained to you everything, then you can just, put all these aside and surrender to me. So what I am trying to do is I'm trying to live that way. But for each person, they are looking for their own way. However, until and unless we start, following that and taking these kind of explanations and instructions also to our own life, applying them to our own life, no change is going to happen. And this is, once we start following that, we feel the connection, and this is what brings peace of mind. And it's not only, it goes along with different religions. Like in Christianity, we have something which is called to find peace within yourself. And well, interestingly enough, that for me, the peace didn't come through Christianity, which is like the traditional sort of religion in the Desh where I was born, but it came to me through this, inquiry, through Bhagavad-Gita, through the kind of explanations which I got from Bhagavad-Gita. So that's, I don't know if I answered your
question. I think, Galyna, what you and Rahul
Galyna,
are trying to say is actually not completely that. I wouldn't really agree that ultimately it's about just bhajan karna that the Lord is saying. I think the idea is that you can approach from where you are, from who you are, swabhav se jo hai. Your dharma can emerge from that. You can follow your own path, and ultimately all those paths will converge. So as you said, Rahul,
one point I have to make here. Aarti and Rahul, I will request both of you, if you have already read, it's fine. Otherwise, kindly read Yatharth Gita. Yatharth Gita available in more than 20 languages, written by Swami Alagranand, close to Varanasi, Mirzapur, he hails from. And ultimately, you'll find a small book, Bhajan Kiska Kare. See, everything is directed to attaining pleasure, happiness. Whether I'm killing somebody,
that is where my book starts from. If you read the back cover, or if you read that, the question that led to ye book, this is basically a conversation that is happening between two people. एक 25 साल का IIM graduate है, एक 50 साल का है. उसमें क्या हो रहा है, क्वेश्चन जहां आता है कि व्हाट इज हैप्पीनेस, उस हैप्पीनेस की डेफिनेशन बताते बताते पूरी गीता खत्म हो जाती है. So that is how this whole book is structured. Another thing, Bhagavad-Gita, Galyna says what attracted to her is 18.66, which is sare leave all dharmas and surrender to me. In my case, 3 verses before, 18.63 appealed to me, which says, now that I have given you all this confidential knowledge, deliberate and do as you please. You see? So depending on what you want to take away, it is speaking to you in the language that you understand. So I took away 18.63, she took away 18.66. There is, it's just an individualistic journey. So यथार्थ गीता की आपने बात की, भक्ति योग का मार्ग आपने बताया, ऐसे ज्ञान योग भी है, ध्यान योग भी है. When we say, जब हम कहते हैं योग ना, the picture we have in our mind is somebody is doing ध्यान, तो वो अष्टांग योग या ध्यान योग है. बट उसके अलावा कर्म योग है, भक्ति योग है, ज्ञान योग है.
But why is it, Rahul, why is it that this Dhyan Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga is more popular?
Yeah,
you see people doing pranayam and
very good question.
Is it easier?
No, it's not.
It no. It leads to wellness or what?
No, none of that. See, every question that you guys are asking, it is like a topic in itself, and that's why I can explain. Let me explain it in this way. Very quickly, I'll try to explain. It's a bit like science. कोई भी science आप पढ़ेंगे, whether you are studying physics or chemistry or biology or engineering, any of these science, one gentleman told me to go slow, but you see, I cannot go slow because I have to cover so much in such a short span of time. I'm losing breath. I'm eating strepsils so that I don't cough. So anyways, so the point is, any science you pursue, so whether you are physics, chemistry, biology, or engineering, each of them will lead you to Nobel Prize if you pursue sincerely. And the Nobel Prize for soul is moksha. Okay, So how do you pursue? Which one do you pursue? So there are various marks. Why is Dhyan Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga more popular than the other? See, what happens is that very often we look at periphery and focus on the main crux. So what Dhyan Yoga is just another mark. It says you have to stabilize your mind and then think about the Paramatma within your heart. That is what Dhyan Yoga is. But अगर आपका शरीर ही नहीं स्थिर रह सकता 15 मिनट 20 मिनट 1 घंटे, तो आप खाक योगा करोगे, खाक ध्यान लगाओगे? पहले शरीर तो स्थिर कर लो। उस शरीर को स्थिर करने के लिए आपका पहले यम होता है, नियम होता है, प्राणायाम होता है, आसन होते हैं। That is just preparing you so that you can then condition your mind, and then you can ultimately reach samadhi. Samadhi is your ultimate destination. It's called Ashtanga Yoga because it has got 8 limbs. Problem, Aarti, let me finish. Problem that happens is that we start looking at periphery. अच्छा, body सही रखनी है तो योगा कर लो. अरे, that is not the objective of yoga. That is just a natural outcome of yoga. Understand that. You know, same. हाँ, तो हम पेरिफेरल में घुस जाते हैं। इस तरह से जो इकिगाई की मैंने बुक लिखी है उसमें लोग बोलते हैं इकिगाई द सीक्रेट टू हैप्पीनेस एंड लॉन्ग लाइफ। ये मतलब नहीं है। यू आर डूइंग द राइट थिंग फॉर द रॉन्ग रीजन। अगर आप अपना इकिगाई, अपना स्वधर्म फॉलो करोगे तो आप नेचुरली हैप्पी रहोगे। नेचुरली हैप्पी रहोगे तो लंबा जियोगे। ये नहीं कि हैप्पी होना है और लंबा रहना है तो इकिगाई फॉलो करो, या शरीर स्वस्थ रखना है तो योगा करो। आपने पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट तो घुमा दिया फिर तो व्हाई, टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन, व्हाई इज दैट ध्यान योगा मोर पॉपुलर? बिकॉज है हमारी रिक्वायरमेंट्स, हम शरीर को स्वस्थ रखना चाहते हैं, वो लालच में हम ध्यान योग करते रहते हैं। अब ज्ञान योग के लिए उपनिषद पढ़ना पड़ता है, उसके लिए संस्कृत जाननी पड़ती है, ठीक है। भक्ति योग के लिए एक लविंग रिलेशनशिप डेवलप करना पड़ता है। कर्म योग के लिए निष्काम करना होता है। अब हु इज निष्काम? है कोई है इस सभा में जो ऐसा कार्य करता है जस्ट एज ए ड्यूटी, एंड कोई उसका कोई लोभ नहीं है, कोई उससे अटैचमेंट नहीं है? कहना बड़ा आसान है, करना मुश्किल है ना। तो अल्टीमेटली व्हाई ध्यान योगा? आई थिंक दैट अकॉर्डिंग टू मी इज द रीजन.
I'm sorry if I can ask one quick question. I know time is not permitting us to ask any questions now because we are already crossed that. So just Rahul, here, Praveen here. I actually am also ex-banker. I just want to ask one quick question. Why it is so that all of us, a lot of us bankers also, Mr. A.K. Singh also is an ex-banker, and investment bankers adopt the path of, this enlightenment and spirituality, starting from Amish to Chetan Bhagat to Rahul Singh. Me also ex-banker, now run 2 companies, Evoke India and Arthvipra Finvest Private Limited. And I am for pursuing Gita like anything now. And as you rightly said, financial freedom is something which we gain. And then Krishna says in this 322, Name Parthasti Kartavyam Tishu Lokesh Kinchan. कि जब कोई हमारे पास कर्तव्य भी नहीं है, काम भी नहीं, तब भी हम काम करते रहते हैं. So that is where I think what I want to ask question is that how should we, reach out to more people at the early stage of life who are maybe if I can call lesser mortals who are not IIMs, IITians, how they can get this. I'm sorry to say that, but it is very important now, and this is what the whole of India is struggling with. How these teachings can go right up to the root level, which is what are you doing and what is an atheist doing, and what maybe Galyna and you can just throw some light on that in some quick words.
आपका बहुत अच्छा प्रश्न है और मैं हिंदी में उसका उत्तर देता हूँ या मिला के देता हूँ। देखिए, आपने बहुत नब्ज पकड़ ली प्रॉब्लम की। दिस विजडम इज कमिंग फ्रॉम इंडिया, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा जहाँ गीता यूज होती है वो हिंदुस्तानी कोर्ट रूम्स में होती है, उस पे हाथ रखकर झूठ बोलने के लिए। ये विडंबना है हमारी देश की, right? Gita is used in the courtrooms to tell lies. That is the most prolific use of the Gita that happens in India. Now, coming to your question, why do investment bankers, why do they quit and all that? I don't know. Maybe it's a sampling bias, but what I know for sure is the road to renunciation goes through attainment. In order to renounce something, you should have attained something. अगर कुछ अटेन ही नहीं किया है, अगर वो इच्छा सबकी होती है, अगर वो इच्छा ही नहीं पूरी हुई है, तो अब क्या रिनाउंस करो? भगवान गौतम बुद्ध इसलिए हैं क्योंकि वो प्रिंस थे. He renounced his princehood, he renounced his wife, he renounced his child, right? That's why he's Gautam Buddha, right? So Ratan Tata comes and says, do your business ethically. That has meaning. Rahul Singh says it has no meaning because मेरे लाइफ में ऐसी क्या सिचुएशन आई थी कि मेरा 1000 करोड़ का नुकसान हो जाता अगर मैं एथिकली नहीं करता, अपने को या एथिकली करता. So it's not the words, it's the person who says. So journey is important. So unless you have, I will repeat, the road to renunciation is through attainment. You cannot run away from that. Unless you have attained something, there is no point talking about I am giving up. 70 साल के हो गए, अब आप बोल रहे हैं मेरा जो भगवान है सब कुछ आपको दे रहा, बचा क्या तुम्हारे पास देने के लिए? 20 पे दो, 15 पे दो, 30 पे दो, तब तो कुछ देने के लिए है. जब बचा ही नहीं कुछ देने के लिए, तो क्या देने आए हो? तो coming to the second part of the question, how can youngsters get this? So I am working towards that. I go and talk about these concepts in management institutes. आप जैसे लोग हैं, अगर आपको लगता है कि आपके ऑफिसेस में लोग हैं जो बेनिफिट करेंगे इससे, I'm happy to do sessions. I have given up my investment banking job. It has been hardly been like 25 days now. I just gave up because I believe I have a higher purpose. I mean, who cares how much money I made? Who cares kitna bada ghar hai, kitni badi gaadi? Ultimately, what matters is how many lives you have impacted. And there is a person in my other book which is called Engineering to Ikigai, and Aarti is also the first chapter in that book. The last chapter in that book is a 44-year-old, also an investment banker, who unfortunately died in a trekking in Nepal, and that guy had adopted 18 Nepalese girls who he had rescued from basically slavery, like sex slavery. Actually, they were 12, 13, 14, 11-year-old girls. So, you know, what people remember of Vishrut, that is the person's name, is that they don't remember how big his bungalow is just next door to mine. That is not what people remember. So I think in my case, I was fortunate enough to run into some people who awakened me at the right time, where I realized that, okay, my purpose is to help others find their purpose. And that now has become mantra for my life.
Thank you.
Just to add 2 words to this, like what Rahul said. Yeah, I think the only way is to reach out, to tell about it, because maybe there will be a kid like me who was looking for something but didn't have it. So thanks for that person who brought it in, you know. Thank you to somebody who told me about it. Maybe there are people who are not questioning yet, but once they hear, okay, it just puts some seed into their mind. So yeah, I guess that's right. I mean, the only way is to make it available so that the youngsters can look at it, can hear it, and if they're already questioning, then it's going to be a good set of answers for them. If they're not questioning yet, then it will just put the seed in their mind.
Yeah. Great.
So I think
Aarti, I have a question to ask. Aarti,
I have a question
to ask.
Last
Hello, yes.
question.
आरती खान साहब का एक क्वेश्चन है, ले लेते हैं प्लीज. लास्ट क्वेश्चन.
Please.
Yes. Now I should start with this, that it's been a fascinating talk by you and Galyna. My question to you is, we have to be very brief now, is that do you see any similarity between Sufism and Gita, the teachings of Sufism and Gita? And after that, I'll ask you, something else.
खान साहब, आपको ये जान के खुशी होगी कि मैं जब छोटा था मैं उस पर डिस्कशन नहीं हो पाया, बट माय अपब्रिंगिंग वाज वेरी सेकुलर. मैं मदरसे भी गया हूँ, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मदुर रसूलुल्लाह, और 300 पारे पढ़े हैं कुरान के मैंने, और मैं अरबिक पढ़ सकता हूँ, उर्दू पढ़ सकता हूँ. ठीक है. तो जो आपने ये सिमिलैरिटीज की बात की ना, और वो मैं धर्म का जब डेफिनेशन दे रहा था तो मैं वहां पहुंच नहीं पाया. बट why is it that हम religion को धर्म बोलते हैं? Because every religion fundamentally is telling you how to lead your life in a pious and a righteous way. तो उस बात को ध्यान में रखते हुए, चाहे आप तोरा पढ़ें, चाहे आप बाइबल पढ़ें, चाहे आप कुरान पढ़ें, चाहे आप गीता पढ़ें, आपको उसमें सिमिलैरिटीज नजर आएंगी. खान साहब, दिक्कत कहाँ होती है? दिक्कत यहाँ होती है कि जो लोग गीता और कुरान के नाम पे लड़ाते हैं, विडंबना वो है कि उन्होंने ना गीता पढ़ी है ना कुरान पढ़ी है. प्रॉब्लम वहां आती है, क्योंकि अगर आपने गीता पढ़ ली होती या कुरान पढ़ ली होती या दोनों में से एक भी पढ़ ली होती तो आपका उद्धार हो जाता. प्रॉब्लम वहां आती है कि जहां पे आपने कुछ भी नहीं पढ़ा और आप लोगों को बरगलाते हैं. तो सूफिज्म और गीता में 100% सिमिलैरिटी है. मैं पूरे तहे दिल से ये एग्री करता हूं जो आपने अभी जो विचार रखे.
तो राहुल, मैं एक ब्रीफ रिएक्शन और है कि हमारी एक यहाँ पे सूफी फाउंडेशन चलती है, इसको कहते हैं रूमी फाउंडेशन. इट्स अ नेशनल फाउंडेशन व्हिच इज हेडेड बाय करण सिंह, द फेमस द स्कॉलर.
करण सिंह को जानता हूं मैं अच्छे से, वो इलेक्शन
वो हमारे प्रेसिडेंट है वो. जी हाँ. हम चाहेंगे कि व्हेन आप जब लखनऊ आए अगली बार, तो अगर हमको मालूम हो सके तो हम चाहेंगे कि हमारा ग्रुप, और अगर एलएमए भी ज्वाइन करे उसमें, हम आपके साथ एक ऑफलाइन आपका प्रेजेंटेशन चाहेंगे.
बड़ी मेहरबानी है. मतलब आपने जो ये
आप कब उम्मीद है आप आएंगे? कब आएंगे आप?
अब आपने आमंत्रित कर दिया है तो बिल्कुल आएंगे, अब जल्द से जल्द आएंगे।
हाँ, क्योंकि हमारे
पेरेंट्स यहीं पे हैं सलीम भाई साहब, his parents are here and so he keeps coming. It's just pandemic की वजह से अभी नहीं आ पाए।
तो आप
राहुल
आरती
अभी
आपने
settled
नाम
कहाँ
सुना
है?
होगा उनका, डॉक्टर मंसूर हसन का, डॉक्टर मंसूर हसन का।
Yes, yes. He also has a wonderful commentary on Gita and heart cardiology.
He's a scholar. He's a scholar on
Scholar,
Gita.
yes. Yeah, yeah.
And also on Sufism, and he's our mentor also of the foundation. तो मैं चाहूंगा उनका इंटरेक्शन कराना राहुल के साथ. It will be young versus old, but then so much of wisdom together. I think a lot of answers will come out of it.
थैंक यू सो मच। मतलब आपके ये शब्द जो हैं, मेरा मतलब ये सेशन सक्सेसफुल हो गया, आपने जो ये शब्द बोले। थैंक यू सो मच। आई वुड लव टू कम and have that discussion with the gentleman.
Rahul, one more point, last point from my side. I think you are speaking from Singapore.
जी।
अभी आपने साथ की बात की, आपने उसको एक्सप्लेन भी किया, तो खान साहब का तो इनविटेशन ही है, whenever you happen to come to Lucknow, certainly spare some time for offline as well as in a small group detailed discussion. You have started a journey on a very strong footing. I must congratulate you, but still you too have to travel along as far as this subject is concerned. So Singapore, because my son is there, who is I'm very shortly coming to Singapore. I will seek some appointment with you.
बिल्कुल Singh साहब, I would love to. That would be my pleasure.
My son is there, Nishan Singh. He's from IT Kanpur and he was with Deutsche Bank GMC, and now he is the executive director there in Morgan Stanley at Singapore. So I'm coming shortly. I will seek an appointment and I'll throw some light and also try to get some insights from you also, from your knowledge. And
thank you so much, Singh sir. Would be my pleasure.
I'll get your details from Rajiv.
Sure.
And I also wanted to share that Galyna and Rahul have also been invited by the Harvard School of Divinity to deliver a lecture for them as well.
Yeah, but let's keep that as a suspense, right? So,
so I think we should end the session with a formal vote of thanks, and I would request Praveen Dwivedi to do that.
Thank you. I think indeed it's been such an imbibing and interesting session. Churning of thoughts is like samudra manthan pura ho raha tha. I could visualize that kind of manthan happening here. And so first of all, a great thanks to Aarti for bringing this whole show together for us. I think it's been wonderful. Thanks so much for putting this up for us. I don't know whether we could reach out to many people. A lot of people would have really benefited had it been an offline session. So a great talks today, I think wonderfully done. And for Rajiv and Galyna, both of you, I think there is so much yet, because I haven't gone to. Now I'll pick up the copy of the book and certainly try to go through it, because this is something while I was little lucky to have been introduced to this early in my my schooling system, but I worked for MNC banks such as BC, Stancy and all, so never got time to get. When I moved on and then I again went back into it, there's so much of wisdom which is there, I think, which can really transform people from Chervaka philosophy ki khao piyo mauj karo, wo wali philosophy se change karne ko humko abhi bahut zaruri ho gaya hai. So this is where my heart lies into it, and I really do a lot of course we are doing a lot of work on financial literacy and all. आज जब financial literacy करेंगे तो financial freedom आएगा, फिर जाके लोग शायद वहां तक पहुंच पाएंगे.
उस पे भी मैं बोलता हूँ. I talk about conscious capitalism, and that is ESG. All those are how you marry finance with that marriage is important. You cannot have a divorced knowledge where knowledge is on one side and practice is totally removed from it. So very wonderful things that you are saying here.
Yeah, so that's important actually. Conscious capitalism and impact investing is the way forward, which is what will lead you to some amount of wisdom on these lines. So thank you very much, everyone, all the distinguished members of Lucknow Management Association for sparing your time and of course extended time today, and Rajiv ji for coordinating all this. Thank you very much, Mathur Saab, for, I think you were the initiator. You really, as soon as you picked it up from Aarti, you really made it known to all of us and we could organize today. So thank you very much, Rajiv and Galyna. Thanks so much to both of you from your different countries you could join. Thanks a lot. I think
thank you, Praveen ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Stay safe.